Hey guys, it's Kelsey. I'm back with another scrapbooking process video, and today is Stretch the Sketch. This is a sketch we have to use today. We can either stretch it out into a bigger format or squish it down into a smaller layout. Today I'm going to be squishing it down into an 8.5 by 11 layout. I know those aren't as common layouts to see, so hopefully if anyone is an 8 by 11 scrapper, this will be helpful. But yeah, so all I'm doing is I decided to grab a 8.5 by 11 piece of wood grain from my stash. Wood grain is so beautiful with this collection, so I'm really finding it helpful to just pull wood grain papers when I need a larger piece of paper to work from, because obviously I only have 6x6s in my kit this month. And then I'm just trying to get all my pictures trimmed down. This sketch uses 3 photos, and because I'm squishing it into an 8.5 by 11, I really need smaller photos so it stays as proportional as possible. So I decided to get these 3 photos from my mom's wedding. I love these photos. They're so sweet. They're during the ceremony and then walking out of the church. I just love their faces. They're so happy and it's so sweet, and I thought the colors went nice with this collection just because it's such like a homey, warm, lovey-dovey collection. So I got my photos trimmed down. The bigger one I just trimmed down into a 4x4, and the 2 smaller ones I believe I ended up doing 2.5 by 3.5, I think is what they ended up being. And I went ahead and matted them all on white so that they would have a frame. And now I'm just focusing on the main layers of the sketch. There's this larger vertical layer, and then there's a skinnier horizontal layer. So I'm just trying to create those. I know because I'm a 12 by 12 scrapper that this will be matted on a 12 by 12. So I went ahead and pulled out a white piece of cardstock that I'm planning on being the 12 by 12 I matted on, and gutting it so that I don't have to like cut into a whole sheet of white to frame these photos. So that's all I was doing just then. So I'm using the piece I gutted from what will be the background to create my mats for the rest of the photos. So I'm just getting all those trimmed out, but you can kind of see the layout I'm going for. I'm really trying to follow the sketch. I decided to use the floral from this collection as the larger vertical piece, and then this soft pink scallop as the horizontal piece. I really like how those look together, and it makes the whole page just look so soft. I love the Rebecca collection in general because of that. But that's kind of what I'm going for. I'm really trying to just focus on the 8.5 by 11 because that's the whole point of this challenge, is to change the layout. You will see kind of once I get to the end of this process video, I will go ahead and mat it on my 12 by 12 and add a little bit more just so it looks like it makes sense in my album, because when I matted it just on white, it kind of looks too plain. But I love what came out from this layout. This sketch was kind of a more deconstructed version of a sketch. Everything's kind of laid out in a grid versus layered on top of each other, which is a really fun way to work. It's different for me. You can tell from most of my layouts I really like layering and doing embellishment clusters, where I decided to do more of a deconstructed look on this layout. So you'll see that more when I start embellishing. But again, I'm trying to ink everything in brown. I love how inking in brown looks with this collection, so I'm just going through and getting all my pieces inked, and then we'll start piecing it all together. So I had to use 2 of my 6x6s to create this vertical piece with the floral, but my pink horizontal piece is going to end up covering that gap, so it won't really matter, which is nice. I'm always trying to figure out ways to be frugal, especially when I have smaller pieces to work with this month. So I'm going to get all of that glued down, and then we'll work on my pink vertical piece, or horizontal piece, sorry, and then I'll get my photos down. And pretty much that's the sketch after that. I just have to get my title and embellishment down after that. So this page came together pretty quickly. It's also nice when you squeeze down a layout because it's smaller. You have less room to work with, so those pages typically come together a little faster too. There's just less real estate you have to worry about filling up. So I got that layer down. I don't know if I already inked the white layers around the photos, but those end up being inked as well. And then again, you can see this pink piece isn't quite long enough, but because the 4x4 is going to cover a chunk of it, I can kind of stretch that piece of paper a little bit too. So you'll see I'm going to go ahead and ink it, and then I'll just cut it in half and stretch it. There we go. and you won't even see that gap because that photo is there. But I think that looks really sweet. I love this color combo. I love the wood grain in this collection, and pulling in wood grain from my stash, so it's been a nice way to get things used up that have kind of just been sitting around, which is always really satisfying. But everything's pretty much trimmed, so I'm just putting all the pieces together to get this layout down, and then I'll start playing with embellishment. I kind of get tripped up a little bit on the embellishment because I want to do more clustery things, but what I decided to use to embellish with, it just worked out a lot better in that deconstructed format, so you'll see that when I kind of get there. I really wanted to use the other scripty word that comes in my ephemera. I already used the word comfy on a page, so the only other word was beauty, which I thought was perfect because my mom was so beautiful. So that'll end up pretty much being my title. I'll pop that up on some foam. But that was a black and white element, so I wanted to pair another black and white element diagonally across the page just to create balance. So there's a black and white bow that I'll also pop up on some foam and have in the opposite corner. So here's that beauty piece. In the sketch, the title is on top of the larger photo, so that's initially where I thought I was going to place it, but it laid a lot better at the bottom of the photo, so I ended up changing that a little bit and moving the title. So I'm just getting my foam dots on there so it has some dimension, and then I'll play around with placement, but it definitely looks a lot better laying on the bottom of that photo versus the top. And I definitely didn't want the Y, the descending letter, to like come down in the middle of this beautiful photo of my mom and her new husband walking out. So there we go. I think I went ahead and took the stickies off. I'm gonna commit and go ahead and glue that down, but I love that placement a lot better. So there's that one, and then I want some more layers. You can see me trying a few different things throughout this layout. It's just looking too plain, so I know I want to add more, but I'm not quite sure what yet. But I'm trying to stay in the color scheme I've already created. Because the papers are Rebecca and the ephemera is Madison, there's a lot of colors in the ephemera pack that don't go with this collection. So I'm trying to stick to the more neutral ones that are just pink or black and white. So you'll kind of see that. There's that black and white bow. I really like how it looks in the upper right hand corner. It really balances that beauty word. So that's going to go ahead and get stuck up on some foam and up in the upper right hand corner, which is nice because that corner of the photo is just very plain. It's just the wall in the church, so it's not blocking anything. I really like what that adds to. I was playing around with some other tabs in this collection, but I really end up going for these adorable little rubber charms. I love these tiny little rubber tags that come in the Rebecca collection, are so cute. And I thought I'd have a harder time with the ones with words in them. But I decided to get all three of them just clustered together on this page, and they look really nice all lined up together, especially because the tag holes are different shades of pink and black, so it's in the color scheme. It's not distracting. That's one of the things about some of the other tags. They had green in them. I really didn't want to introduce green, so I tried to stick to the more neutral ones. And because I have this scripty word at the bottom of the page, I thought having scripty words on the little tags as the embellishment would also really balance the page and keep everything cohesive. So that's what I'm thinking as far as embellishment. I do want to get some more of these vellum hearts on there. I have a ton of vellum hearts that come in this collection, so I definitely am trying to get them on every page. I didn't want a whole bunch, but I thought it would be cute if I had some layered up in one area at least. I was thinking about having them over the wood grain, but it was kind of looking too detached from the layers and too far off from the sketch. So what I decided to do is take one heart that's kind of smaller and have it to the left of the big photo in the gap where that pink paper is, and instead of layering up a couple vellum hearts, which would be larger, I layered the black chipboard heart that comes in the ephemera over one of the vellum hearts, and you'll see what I mean in a minute. But I think spatially it looks a lot nicer. Color wise it balances a lot better. That orangey tone is only in the floral, that's more on the right side of the page, so pulling in one of those more orangey vellum hearts to the left I think helps pull that color over and make it look more like it makes more sense. That's the black chipboard heart I'll end up using too, but for a moment I thought it would look cute over one of these tabs instead. But I decided not to do that once I figure out kind of more what I wanted to do. I'm determined with these vellum hearts to find a spot for them, but I kept trying all these different places, and you can see it just kind of detracts from what I already have going, and I don't want it to detract or change the sketch that I'm working from too much. So I'm just figuring out what else I want to do. I really am just wanting to use more of these ephemera bits, but I don't need to. And once I decided to use these little rubber charms, I was like, oh, that's the finishing touch, or that's the embellishment I need to use versus the ephemera. And I think they look so cute lined up there. It's so nice. And then there's also one tag that has a rainbow that's just a monochromatic pink rainbow. And so I layer that over one of the photos too. And I just think it looks so cute. I was kind of like, should I really use 4 of these really cute rubber tags all on one page? And then I was like, this is for my mom's wedding. It's worth it, and they look cute. So yes, I used 4 of them on this one page. And then this is where I decided to switch gears with the hearts. So I love how that black chipboard heart looks over there, and I'm just trying to find a vellum heart to pair with it. I end up going with this darker orangey one, which I love. It pulls in that orangey color from the floral, and I think that really helps balance everything out. So that'll be what I end up doing. I think at first I was thinking about pairing it with the pink chipboard heart, but because I have several black elements on here, I really thought it needed to be a black heart. So I'll switch that over in a minute. There we go. I am going to thread all 4 of these mini rubber tags with black and white twine just to stay with that black and white Felicity Jane theme. And I think that also helps tie everything together. I really liked stitching. I like stitching with Felicity Jane anyways, but I had to stitch on a layout for the Scrap 5 earlier this month and I ended up stitching in black and doing cross stitching, and I really liked how that looked, so I decided to go ahead and do cross stitching in black on this layout too. But I wait until I go ahead and mat it on the 12 by 12 so the stitching can kind of run across the whole page and not just the 8.5 by 11, just so it looked a little bit more cohesive in my 12 by 12 album. But I love this little 8.5 by 11 by itself. I think it's super cute. So I try to wait as long as possible before matting it, so you can kind of see for the challenge purposes what this sketch looks like exclusively on an 8.5 by 11. It's so cute. Almost done with the twines. I think I'm just going to skip ahead here in a second just to make sure I get all the twine through so you don't have to watch me thread all of them. Alright, so all of them are glued down now, and I think this is where I pull in my 12 by 12 so you can see that white paper. This is what I'm going to mount it on so it can go in my 12 by 12 album. And this is pretty much the 8.5 by 11 is done at this point. I really think it's cute, but since I am adding it on the 12 by 12 just for the purposes of going in my book, I did want to add a couple more things just so I didn't, it just looked too plain with so much white space around the background. So I do go in and I add a black and white gingham just so there's a nice horizontal piece going behind the wood grain, and then I do some black and cross stitching across the whole horizontal part of the layout, which I think looks really cute and really adds to the 8.5 by 11 version. I really thought it was kind of missing that extra little detail. So this is where I think I want to call it done and not add anymore because the challenge was the smaller layout. But I had to add a little something on the 12 by 12. So I went through my 6 by 6 Felicity Jane stash, pulled out this black and white gingham. I'm just going to trim, I think it's a 2.5 inch horizontal strip to stretch behind these layers. And at the bottom there, I'm just cutting a scallopy border. I wanted it to have some detail on it since it's the only thing really that I'm adding to the side. So I did do a scallopy border punch along the bottom. I will ink that whole thing, and that will be on either side running horizontally behind my 8.5 by 11 layout. And then I'll go through and do my cross stitching. So I went ahead and just tore it in half because that tear is going to be hidden anyways. I was too impatient to trim it apparently, but I like what that adds, and I really think it emphasizes the pink horizontal strip that's on the smaller layout, so I like that. I think it also helps tie in the black and white chipboard pieces that are popped up on foam too. It just kind of creates that extra balance. And then I think this is where I switched out the pink chipboard heart to the black chipboard heart. And now the 8.5 by 11 portion is done, other than cross stitching. So I didn't realize I put glue on the back, but it's through the hole where I had got the white piece of paper. So I did just have to cover up that glue again so it wouldn't stick to my mat. And then I do have to pull off that beauty piece temporarily to get all my holes poked for the cross stitching. But I'm just poking all of these holes at 1/4 of an inch apart. I'm doing 2 rows of them, making sure the holes are lined up, and then those will be what I do for cross stitching. So I won't make you watch all this. I'm going to go ahead and cut to the end of the cross stitching so you can see it done, and I'll be right back. I kept a little bit in for you guys so you could see some of it, but this is where I am starting to cross stitch, and magically I will tie this off and it'll all be done and you can see the finished product. And I'll go back and I'll add some washi where those loose threads are as well, just so those are secure to the back of the page and not dangling. But yeah, I love how the cross stitching looks on this page when I'm done. So here we go. I think we'll jump forward in a little bit and the cross stitching will be magically done. Ta-da! And it's super cute. So just adding that washi to the back, and then the close-ups will be here in a second. But I really hope that was kind of a fun way to see how you can squish down a 12 by 12 into a smaller format, and also how you can use an 8.5 by 11 sketch when you're a 12 by 12 scrapbooker. So here are the close-ups. Make sure you check out everyone else playing along. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!